Sure.
These critters are amazing. I couldn't be happier with this company.
We absolutely love these cages.
One at a time, okay, guys?
All right, hey guys, welcome to another Coturnix Corner Live. Glad everyone could join us. With us today is Rebecca Lynch from Thieving Otter Farm, Bree Patz from Pips and Chicks, and of course Michael Rose from Southwest Game Birds. Welcome, guys. Glad you could join us tonight. So what we're going to do tonight, we are celebrating a milestone for the channel, 50,000 subscribers, which is unheard of as far as I'm concerned. And we got some really good, great giveaways for you guys tonight. Some of the prizes that we're giving away, Michael's donated a 1-year subscription to Quailology. That is his coaching course online. One lucky winner is going to get that. Also a 30 count of hatching eggs from both Thieving Otter Farms and Southwest Game Birds. We got a $50 gift certificate from Hatching Time and a Coturnix Corner retro tumbler will be going out to one lucky winner. So what we're going to do real quick, guys, I got a couple announcements, and then I'm going to pass it around to each of our guests for some updates on what's going on in their world. And after that, we'll go ahead and jump into the chat room and take your guys' questions. I do want to say that for the 1-year subscription for the coaching program, if you guys are really interested in that, comment in the group Quailology, and that way Michael can find someone that's really interested in getting into that, and select one of you guys from the chat room. So you got that, Michael? Okay. First off, where was I at here? The announcements. First off, I want to say thank you guys for helping us get to 50,000 subscribers. The channel could not have done it without you. We have a lot of people that have been in it or been subscribed to the channel since day one, and I really appreciate your guys' loyalty. Hopefully we can make it to 100 grand, but we'll see what happens there. The only other thing that I want to say is regarding the Coturnix Kids project, which is over on the Coturnix Corner community website. We're going to try to get that started again. I do have a couple people that have come up with some prizes for the kids that they want to donate each month, but we're still looking for a few sponsors that are willing to donate something. It'd be a once a month donation, whether it's food or equipment, like feeders, water, stuff like that. I'm still trying to find a company that will give us an incubator for the kids, but I think whatever we can get put together, will be good enough to get them going. So what we're going to do is if you guys are interested in having your kids in this program, check it out over on the CoturnixCorner.com website. There's a link there that tells you all the stuff that we're looking for, and get your kids signed up. We're going to start fresh this year with a whole new batch of entries. All the other ones, I basically put them off to the side just because I don't know how many of those kids are actually still into quail. As a matter of fact, I know some of the parents that their kids got in totally got out of quail altogether. So there's no sense in doing that. So we're going to start all over and see if we can't keep the program going throughout the rest of the year. So I think that's about it for me. I do want to. I always forget sponsors: Southwest Game Birds and Hatching Time. I appreciate both of you guys, everything that you guys do for the channel, and also for sticking around for, I don't know, it's probably been going on almost a year or better than a year. Not sure exactly. So Bree, I know you've got a new program coming up, so I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to you real quick and go ahead and let everybody know what's going on.
Yeah, so we've started the American Turnix Breeders Association. So we had our first meeting last month. Our next meeting will be tomorrow. And if you're interested, let me know. I can send the Zoom link to Terry as well. And we're doing all sorts of things with that. So one of the biggest things that we're working on now is getting a standard written up for the Turnix quail. So both Rebecca, Michael, and Jennifer, Bryant from Bryant's Roost are working on putting a standard together and getting that up and going to make quail shows a little bit bigger of a thing. So we've got the virtual show going on now. So I think we're up to 80 quail in open show. So if you've got quail and you've got pictures of your quail, send them on in. We'd love to see more of them. I think we only have like 30 or so youth quail, and we have plenty of awards to give out for that. With amazing sponsors. Michael has sponsored some of the awards for the youth quail, same with Rebecca. And there's plenty of ribbons, cash awards. So take pictures of your birds, send them on in. And yeah, I'll let Rebecca or Michael talk a little bit more about the ACBA too.
Go ahead, Rebecca. You can jump in there next.
Okay, well, yeah, I'm super excited about the American Turnix Breeders Association. I think it's going to be a fun way to get people fired up about breeding and becoming a better breeder. And definitely, if you want to be a better breeder, you've got to sign up for Quailology. I've been a member since the start, and Michael's doing a fantastic job on that. So he'll definitely have to tell us more about it. But yeah, so definitely come to the meeting for the association tomorrow. As for me here at Thieving Otter Farm, we've I looked back the other day at the live show that I did with Terry. It was about a year ago, and boy, I've expanded since then. So offering cool new things, new colors. We'll have a jumbo brown line soon, and working on getting the banded blacks out. The blacks are out now. So lots of good stuff, and trying to do some education as well on my Facebook page, a little bit on genetics and breeding. Michael, your turn.
Yeah, sorry about that. I've been muting my mic. Guys, is that air conditioner noise too bad in the background? I shut it off, but that's why I've been muting my mic. It was okay?
It's okay.
It's not too bad.
Okay, I know it was messing up some of the audio on the other people's end, but okay, cool. Go ahead, Michael.
Yeah, so, I guess I'm excited about the association because it's going to finally bring some standardization to quail breeding, which I think will make people a lot more excited to breed them because they'll have something to breed toward, and they'll know if they're doing a good job or a bad job. And certain things, when you start seeing progress, it's just very exciting. And when you see it in your own backyard with your own breeding pairings, especially when you combine that with talking to more experienced breeders and learning, doing something like the coaching program, it just really takes your quail to a whole new level. And people, I think, will be amazed at what they can accomplish in a small backyard setting. It's comparable with what some of the big breeders in the industry right now are doing. So I'm excited to see it over the next few years push Turnix to the next level and really make the industry almost unrecognizable from what it was a few years ago. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to working with everyone who's involved in it so far. They're really good people, and I don't have anything negative to say about it. I think it's going to be really exciting.
Cool. What's going on over at Southwest Game Birds? I'm trying to do something here in the background, so
At our farm,
keep talking.
I am ramping down for the summer, getting projects in order. We slow way down in the summer. We don't like shipping eggs as much in the summer anyway, and so we're sort of in that transition phase. We have a few employees who are graduating and going off to college. I always say bigger and better things, so we're congratulating them and welcoming some new additions to the farm, and just in a transition period right now. So that all happens kind of behind the scenes. In the public space, we're working on some new projects. We're working on the coaching program, and just planning out breeder groups that'll turn into really cool birds for next year. Hopefully some of the projects we've been working on since 2019, 2020 will finally come to fruition so that we can put them up for market. I know I've been teasing people for years about jumbo white celadons or black quail. We've had them on the farm for a while. They're just not ready to sell yet. So I'm really excited to get those to market and finally make good on those promises that we've been making to customers for a long time.
Okay, I just saw a quick question for you, Michael, that I want to put up on screen real quick. Forgot how to do this stuff. It's been so long. Let's see. Well, anyhow, the question was, can you talk a little bit about Quailology and what all it entails?
Sure. So
Hi.
Quailology is my coaching program. It's the Southwest Game Birds coaching program. And my goal is basically, I would much prefer, instead of selling somebody 100 eggs every 6 months, to sell you 100 eggs once and then teach you how to breed the birds that you get from them. So it's about people who want to take breeding stock from the best source where they can get them and then turn them into something better on their farm without having to introduce new blood constantly. And it will also allow people who have a goal to produce something new, maybe something that hasn't been done yet with all the exciting new mutations that have been imported, to take that and make their own signature bloodlines. So if you have heard terms like spiral breeding or different types of plumage mutations in genetics, and you don't know what it means to cross birds, to test cross versus doing a proper cross and then setting up a bloodline from it, this is what that program's for. So it's about taking what exists in the US, which is mostly mutt birds or mixed genetics birds, figuring out what's in them, turning them into a bloodline, and getting the consistency that you want to meet your goals, whether that's a new variety, whether it's a new type of egg, or whether it's a meat bird or an egg line. Those are the main things people breed quail for, but I'm sure there's other things as well. And so, yeah, it's just about learning how to be a better breeder, and I'm hoping over the course of the next few years, I can leave a legacy that's a whole bunch of other breeders that are even better breeders than I am. So if we can use all of the tools that we have at hand as breeders and learn from each other, push ourselves and each other to the next level as breeders, I think we can see the quail industry go much, much farther than it's ever gone. I think it's going to be something in line with where the chicken industry went over the last 100 years. We may see something completely new in our lifetime in quail, and that's really exciting to me.
Nice. Yep, sounds good. All right, we're going to go ahead and jump in the chat room real quick and take some questions. First one up, and you guys can jump in on these at any time. Wolf Guy says, question, I want to set the incubator using some of my own eggs. I've never before had one that's set point down, always on the side. How many days am I good to gather before I should start incubating? So any of you guys want to tackle that one? Go ahead.
7 to 10.
Okay.
basic rule of thumb, you can go a little bit longer if you really, really want to, but your fertility's gonna go way down. So
Right.
you can hatch things out to, I've heard like 21 days. I haven't personally done it because I don't have a reason to, but yeah, you're gonna have your hatch rate's gonna be much, much lower.
I agree. See, Nick's in the house. Says congratulations on the 50K, Terry. Well done. Thank you, Nick. Appreciate that. Let's see here. What other projects are you working on now, Rebecca?
Well, I am still working on the Banded Black, so trying to perfect those before I release them. I'm also working on a really nice White Wing Pied range.
Oh, cool.
And then one thing that's been taking up a lot of my time and interest has been figuring out exactly what black is. So that has been a big vision for a long time, and I'm trying to figure out that recipe and finding out some interesting things. So I hope to do a show with Terry before too long and kind of do a big
Absolutely.
reveal there.
Absolutely. And then you can tell us how you got the white dot ferrule. That was pretty cool looking.
Oh yeah, that was really odd.
Okay, I don't understand this question, but I'm going to put it up there anyhow. It says, question, 50K wow. I have a group of Sin 1 cinnamon hens. I want to breed them to Sin 2 Italian sparkly cinnamon rooster. What would the chicks from this breeding's color be? Thank you for your time. Michael, you got cinnamons, don't you?
Yeah, so I'm trying to pull up the question so I can see it. I apologize. Can you list it off again? So you're breeding a cinnamon Italian to, was it Italian sparkly? Oh, okay, I can see it now.
Okay.
Cinnamon hens bred to cinnamon Italian sparkly. Okay, so they're all going to be cinnamon. I lost it again.
It only stays up for so many seconds and then it drops out.
Okay, so I'll just go through the genes one at a time because that's how I think about it.
Okay.
So if you were breeding cinnamon to cinnamon, it's a simple sex-linked recessive gene. So cinnamon to cinnamon always produces cinnamon no matter what else is present. A few things can hide cinnamon, like dotted white, although it'll technically show through on the little spot on the back of the head. But by and large, when you breed a recessive pure bird to another recessive pure bird, you're always going to get that recessive gene showing up. So then the other gene involved was Italian, if I remember correctly. And so that's one copy of the fawn gene. It's heterozygous. So that's only in one bird. It'll pass that on to half of the offspring. So half of the offspring would look like that parent, and then the other half would just look like the normal cinnamon, if I understood the question correctly.
Okay.
You got sparkly in there too.
Thank you. Okay, that was the other one. So sparkly is going to be the same thing. It's incomplete dominant. So depending on if the bird is pure or heterozygous for that, it'll either pass that on to half of its offspring or all of the offspring. So I think what you might be trying to breed for is one with all of those genes. And so if you have both genes from one or both of the birds, you will get some of them. But that nice pattern that's the Italian sparkly pattern, whether it's with the cinnamon color or not, is never going to breed true. Once the sparkly gene is pure, you're going to get the more solid pattern, unfortunately. But an Italian sparkly cinnamon bird is very beautiful. So I completely get the appeal trying to breed them.
Cool. Okay, let's see. By the way, guys, Michael, I got a whole bunch of people in the chat room commenting Quailology. So if you can select as we're going through these. Can you see the chat room from where you're at? Mm-hmm. Okay. If you want to select one person later on in the show for that. And also, if you want to bring up, you don't have to, but if you want to bring up the Coturnix Corner Facebook group, go to that. This is for you too, Rebecca, that post with all the comments about the 50K. You can select from there also. But they're supposed to be here to win anyhow, so you can just do it from the chat room. Okay. Let's see where we at here. Christina Chen says, I'm a Southwest Gamebirds fan for life. Cool. Do you have window decals, Michael?
We don't. We'll have to get some.
Yeah.
I think that's the first request. I know there was a gentleman selling them for a while, and we just didn't go anywhere with it. But yeah, we'll have to look into that again. That'd be pretty fun.
All right. I still got my K-Dale Coturnix sticker in the back window of my truck.
Nice.
Nobody has any idea what it means, but okay. I think this is to you, Bree. It says, I run a semi-large quail Facebook group. Could you send me a link or an ad for the association for my members?
Yeah, so I will get the link sent to Terry and we'll post it in the Coturnix Corner group for the Zoom meeting.
Okay.
Right now, we're limiting the Facebook group, and once we're going to establish that a little bit more this upcoming meeting at what it is exactly going to take to become a member, like what you all have to do to sign up and everything, and we'll be limiting the Facebook group to just members. That'll be a perk of being a member. You get to, and we'll have updates about what we're doing, and right now it's pretty limited to just like we're just having conversations about what the meetings are going to be like. So we're not doing questions or anything like that in the group yet.
Okay.
So.
Michael, this one's about the course again. She wants to know, is it a class, or are you finished, or are there updates? So it's continually being updated.
Yeah, so it's it'll always be a work in progress. It's not a structured course. There's not a start and end. It's basically whatever content we add combined with a personal coaching element. So you have access to talk on the phone or message or email with me. And then as I can create tutorial videos, I'll upload those. I think we have about 9 or 10 of them up right now. And then we also have another series that I'm calling In the Barn, where I will just videotape something I'm doing in my barn and talk about it. And then we have occasional, I'm trying to think if we have any other types of content, just helpful posts if I think of something to write up. But a lot of it is also the smaller, more tight-knit community of really serious breeders who are interested in learning to breed quail at a more advanced level and meeting each other and talking about different projects. And I see some of that starting to happen in the Facebook group. It's a little bit easier to chat with each other and see comments and whatnot there. And so I like the website for the video content and anything proprietary that we only give paid access members access to. But then that combined with the Facebook group is turning into something pretty cool.
Cool. Okay, Christina Chen says, question, what's the best way to integrate new quail into an existing flock? What's the best age to mix adults with new birds without them killing each other? Rebecca, you want to handle that one?
Sure. I like to wait until they're about the same size before I try to integrate. And you guys may have some other techniques, but what I find works really good is to take all of the quail that I want together and put them in a separate cage, so or a cardboard box or something. Put them all together, let them mingle for a while, kind of throws them off kilter, they don't know what's going on, and then I put them all back into the cage that I want them to go to together. So that way the quail that were already in the existing cage are not being territorial and going after the new quail as much, because now they're thrown off kilter as well. And it does help to do this towards evening, so you can turn out the lights and they all kind of wake up together. So that's that's the way that I have found works best. How about you guys?
I cull a lot, so I mean, I really don't have a whole lot of issues with aggressive birds. Ever since I started culling for aggression, even putting two new groups together doesn't seem to bother them. All right, let's see. Boca del Cielo? I don't know how to say that, but do jumbo whites have head feathers that are easier to pull out because my whites have lost more head feathers than other feather color females? Whoever wants that one can have it.
Sorry, it broke up. Did you say me?
No, but I said you can take it if you want.
Oh, okay.
Accurate.
I think the little dot on the back of their head is just like a target. So
I
it
think
stands
so.
out a little bit more. Quill are very visual. That's the only reason I can think of.
Good answer. Trevino Rant says, question, what's the best way to keep down the smell from quail poop? I don't have poop trays.
I can take this one.
There you go.
My quail are actually in my room right now, so I'm
Wow.
in the space with my quail currently. The best thing I can say is get shavings. I prefer shavings, and clean it often. Like, if you can get water out of there, water's what's going to make it smell. So if it's dry, it doesn't smell nearly as much. I like nipple waters just because they're clean. They don't spill as much. Where I find when I gave them a dish of water, they would kick it all everywhere. So really, if you can get them on wire, that's another huge thing. But yeah, having something on the ground underneath those trays, or even if you don't have a tray, putting something underneath and then just putting shavings on top cuts down smell a lot.
Yep. I agree. Keeping the manure dry really helps. My birds are inside also, so. Go ahead.
I know it's big in the chicken world. I've never seen it done with quail, but if someone wants to try it and let me know how it works, I've heard of using coffee grounds, and it's supposed to be a really good bedding. So if someone wants to try it, let me know.
Gotta drink an awful lot of coffee. That is a good idea, though. Okay, Becky says, what's your biggest tip for a newbie wanting to start? Go ahead, Rebecca.
I would say watch a bunch of Coturnix Corner videos.
Thanks for the plug.
But really, I think where you get your birds from makes a big difference.
Yes.
You want to start out with a breeder that especially breeds for temperament, because I think aggression in quail is one of the biggest things that turns people off from keeping them. If they go out and they're finding their birds scalped, it's heartbreaking. So, I would say look for a breeder that breeds for temperament and has more docile quail. I think that's a good place to start.
Okay. No, I agree 100% on that. Okay, the Birdhouse says, question, do you have any tips for getting consistent humidity in a tabletop incubator? When I add water, even only a little bit, it jumps up to 60-65%, but without water, it drops down to around 20. I would say check your vents first, make sure you got enough ventilation, and also the size of the reservoir that you're filling up. If it's too big, even a little bit of water is going to raise the humidity a lot. But yeah, jumping up 40 to 45% with just a little bit of water. I don't know. What do you guys think?
I've got a tabletop. It's a Brinsea. Works pretty well. If it's a big enough problem that you don't want to hatch out at 65%, then try dry hatching. You get better, there's studies that show you get better results with wet hatching at 45%, 40 to 45%, but there's also people that get just as good of rates with dry hatching, so try just keeping your humidity low and seeing if it works, and then bumping it up again for lockdown.
Right. I don't even really pay that much attention to humidity anymore. My Barado doesn't even have a hygrometer on it. If I'm doing two, like I am right now, I got two incubators going. I got the Barado, and then I've got a hatching time incubator, and it does have a hygrometer. So I'll see what that one says, and then I'll just, okay, it's fine without water, so the other one's fine without water. But South Florida, our humidity's high anyhow, so I usually average around incubating around 35 to 40%, and then I'll bump it up to 65 during lockdown. Okay. Samantha Stratton says, question, what's the best way to brine the quail after butchering?
That's not a question for me. I never cooked them.
What do
That
you
was
guys
my
do,
dad.
Michael?
I don't cook them often, and I don't think the brine is nearly as important for quail as it is for other types of game birds or wild caught game.
Right.
Quail can be cooked unbrined and almost, it's not as noticeable. If you
Right.
get a wild quail, you would need to brine it, I think, a lot more. But yeah, I just see most people brining it in salt water and leaving it overnight or 12 hours or something, and then cooking it.
Yeah, I soak mine in Italian salad dressing. Just put
There
it
you
in
go.
there. Yeah, let it sit overnight. It's great. Okay, Mrs. Young Pickles. There's a name for you. Question: I know with other species there are color variations you do not want to breed together. Two Merle dogs come to mind. Are there any quail variations that are not recommended to cross? Michael, that's a good one for you, and or Rebecca.
Yep. The most common is Andalusian or silver. It causes all kinds of issues if you cross one to another. Off the top of my head, I think that's the only common mutation in public circulation that you wouldn't want to breed together. So you want to keep that gene heterozygous. I know there's some other genes like lethal yellow that are not in public circulation. Orange has partial lethality, but very highly unlikely you're going to run into those. I don't think they're in public hands. So silver is the only one you got to watch out for, and it's just the actual silver gene or Andalusian gene. It's not the other silver variants like blue or the Austeluders or lavender. Those are completely fine.
Okay.
I think albino too. That's in public. It's not common in public circulation, but I believe it is in public circulation. So just you'll know it if you have it. Like if you see it, that's not one that you're gonna be able to breed too much. But
Okay. Boca del Cielo says, question, do Southwest game birds ever come out with a really lavender colored bird versus just a light silver bird?
Not yet. No, that's something I'd like to do someday. Rebecca Lynch, you might beat me to it.
I'm trying.
Are you working with lavenders too, Rebecca?
I'm trying.
Okay.
I'm trying to find it. Yep.
I've actually kind of flipped the other way with all this health nonsense that's been going on. I cut my flock way back, and I think now, well, as a matter of fact, Anita Garrett just sent me a bunch of eggs, so I think I'm going to lean more towards Pharaohs now for a while, just to have something to concentrate on, instead of worrying about all the colors. And I still can't get a red pansy male. I have 100 red pansy hens out there, but I cannot get one to pop out a male. I'm tired of that project. All right, Helpful Friend says, question, what's your ideal ratio of roos to hens? Is it different depending on the size of your breeding program? Anyone take that one?
I'll take it. I think it depends a lot on different things. So, the base answer is generally, one rooster to 4 or 5 hens. But it also depends on how much space you have. So if you're working with an aviary where there's lots of room to run around, You might want to have more roosters so that they can catch those hens and make sure you have good fertility. And then the other thing that I found was with my blacks, they were so docile. For a while, I wasn't having good fertility, and I was worried that it was my breeding program. And then I just started observing my birds, and they weren't mating. They were just so laid back. They weren't doing their job. So I increased my ratio to 1 male to 2 females, and it ended up with great fertility. So I think with jumbos too, if your males start getting a little too big, they tend to get a little bit more lazy, and you might need to increase your ratio. So, you can't necessarily just say, 1 to 5. I think it depends on a number of factors.
Anybody else?
I completely agree. We have a bunch of bloodlines, and it depends on the birds, the individual birds, the bloodline, and the cage size too.
Okay, Donald says, question, can you breed an English white? What can you breed an English white quail with? Can you breed them with each other, or can you breed them with different colors?
I can take that one. English white is, if you're thinking of an almost all white bird with a black dot in the head, they sometimes call it Texas A&M. That's not correct. It's just dotted white. That's homozygous, so it's got 2 copies of the white gene. And you can breed that with whatever you want. If you breed it with another white bird, you're gonna get like another homozygous dotted white. You're gonna get all white birds in your offspring. If you breed it with a regular color, that's where you'll start to see like your tuxedo come through. So it'll be usually, depending on what your base pattern is, depending on what's hiding underneath that white, you'll usually get some of the base color with that overlying tuxedo. So you'll have a white breast, sometimes white. It can sometimes go into the wingtips. It depends. Tuxedo phenotype varies a lot. So the way it looks and how much white it has depends on the line and depends on what you're selecting for. But it depends, like I said, there's no colors that you can or can't breed white with. It doesn't have any interesting off things like silver, wood. So, yeah.
Is anybody else hearing that clicking kind of noise? Is that just coming? I don't know. Are you hearing it too, Bree? Because I was only hearing it. Oh, you are hearing it. Okay. I don't know who it's coming from or what it is, but.
Does someone have a mouse that they're clicking? Maybe. I don't know.
I don't.
Okay.
No, to me it almost sounds like feedback through the mic. But I don't know. That's why I've been muting myself when you guys are talking. Anyhow, Diana Tuttle says, question, as a small farm and getting started in quail, how would Quailology help with breeding in different colors? I guess that is.
I can take that, obviously. It's meant to help you learn how to breed for whatever your goals are. So if your goal is to breed a specific color, we can walk you through those plumage genes, which mutations you have, how to breed out maybe the genes that are hidden under certain other plumage varieties, and turn that into a healthy and robust bird that is the color that you're looking for. So if you want a certain plumage variety, we can definitely talk through the different mutations to get you to that goal. And if it's something that you can't breed true, if it's a variety like that Italian sparkly cinnamon that you really like, we can talk about setting up breeder groups to produce them, even if it's a variety that can't breed true. And I'll tell you right away if it's something that is an unattainable goal or something that is realistic, and we can work toward it.
So to unmute myself. Don says, question, is it hard to breed a 12-ounce jumbo up to a better size? Does it take a long time? Michael, you've got a jumbo breeding program.
Yeah, so it depends on what genetics you're working with. And it can also depend on your numbers. So if you're trying to, a standard quail is around 8 ounces. So we're talking about something that's already 50% larger than a standard quail. And standard domestic quail are already twice as big as wild quail of the same species. So now we're talking about something that's already 3 times what it would genetically be in the wild. Trying to increase that can be very difficult. Every species seems to have a plateau. I know in the turkey world it's called the butterball wall, where you breed a bird oh so large and it's just limited by its genetic code. So with quail, we don't really know what that limit is, but I know my mentor, Robbie at James Murray Farms, said his limit, what he found, was right around 15 ounces. If he went much past that, he hit his own, he called it his own butterball wall, where the quail's legs would give out. You couldn't get the frame to support a bird much larger than that. However, if we have different genetics that we're playing with besides the JMF lines, or maybe if you get really lucky and take a certain subset of the JMF lines and selectively breed really hard for a while, you can move past that. I know he worked on those lines for 50 years, so I'm not going to make grand claims that the sky's the limit, but I suspect with how many people are trying to breed quail now, someone will be able to eventually produce something larger than what we maybe think is possible right now, and they can surprise us all when it happens.
Yeah, I had somebody on last week in the chat room said that they know of a guy that's breeding 20-ounce jumbos, and I'm like, wow, that's huge. And I don't know, I mean, maybe that's the Goliath quail. Is that in Australia or something? You guys heard of the Goliath?
Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me at all. I know there was a scammer that started the whole Goliath quail thing, but in Australia there are some really tremendously impressive lines. There's a meat farm that exports 350-gram processed weight birds, so that's a substantial meat bird, much larger than anything we have here in the U.S. So I know there's definitely impressive birds out there. It will just be interesting to see who pushes them to the next level or makes those standardized and consistent.
Right. All right, here's another one for you, Bree. Dane says, question, when breeding jumbo whites, can we breed only the solid white ones and eventually eliminate the head spot?
Yeah, I was talking to Martin Yardley actually a couple weeks ago about just different whites. And there's a lot of variation within the different white mutations. So the most common ones are going to see white wing pied and dotted white. And you can actually breed them to look like each other. They're just going to act differently, especially in homozygous form. But like their natural phenotype will be a little bit different. So naturally, your dotted whites are going to have that little dot in the back of the head. That's the normal phenotype. And you can breed it, and you can selectively breed it to get that to go away eventually. So you'll have an all-white, completely white bird. Similar to like what Rebecca's doing with her banded blacks. Most EB don't have that white strip, but you can selectively breed it and choose and get it to the point where they do. It just takes a lot of work, and it has to be something that you're going to focus on. So.
Okay. Here's one for you, Rebecca. Lazy Mountain Homestead says, question, if you have a low fertility rate out of your eggs, is it usually the male that is the problem?
Yes, generally, if it's low fertility, it's the male. If it is chicks dying in the shell, the embryo dying, that tends to lead more towards the hen or incubation issues, of course. But I would try, maybe adding a male or two, or switching out your male if you're having issues with fertility.
Okay. Kimberly says, novice question here, what would be the best way to test the temperament of a bird? A temperament test, so to speak. Got any ideas on that, Rebecca? You breed for temperament?
I don't necessarily do a temperament test. I do a lot of observation. I watch my birds. If if there's a hen, hens can be, this is one thing a lot of people are worried about culling roosters for fighting and stuff, but hens can be the biggest jerks ever. So watch your birds, observe them. If there's one that's running around bullying the others, pecking at the others, keeping others away from food and water, that's where you start selecting. And definitely, if you see an injury, if you see a bird that's been scalped, look for the bird that has the blood on the beak, to try to see which is causing the injuries.
Can I add to that?
Yeah, let's go for it.
All
We
right.
can't hear you at all. Just a heads up. I think you're trying to say
Sorry.
something
I got a mute button there.
I would also say pick up the bird and handle it. See how it does in your hand. If it's fighting you and it's hard to hold the bird and control it, then it's a little bit crazy. So maybe you don't want to breed that one. If it's nice and calm and it's alert and curious, you want to make sure that it's healthy. So just because it's not flapping around trying to get away from you doesn't necessarily mean it's a good temperament. It could just be an unhealthy bird. But if it's nice and healthy, curious, looking around, and calm when you handle it, even though it's never been really around people, that could be a good quality. And if you have a scalped bird and a cage, and you happen to have half a cage full of birds with blood on their beaks, definitely don't go cull all of the birds, because only one of them's responsible. So the rest of them just kind of join in the party afterward. So it's natural for a curious bird to peck at blood. You want to make sure you identify the actual culprit. So like what Rebecca said was correct. If you can identify one bird with blood on its beak, that can be identifying the culprit. But if you see half a cage, then you got there too late. So don't go killing all your birds just because you're curious.
Sure.
Okay, here's an add-on to that question. Sundial Fragrance says, what do you do when a particular rooster is beating up again and again in your covey? They all grew up together. However, there is one that is attacked every time. If you want to add on to that, Michael?
Sure. So there's two things. There's probably more than two things, but there's two things I can think of that are going on. One, he's at the bottom of the hierarchy, and you keep pulling him out to let him rest and recover, and then putting him back in. The problem when you do that is you've taken him out of the dominance hierarchy and then introduced him back in, and everyone else has to prove to him who's boss. The other thing that could be going on is you have a bird that just won't give up for whatever reason, and then keeps picking fights that he shouldn't. That may go away over time. Eventually, fighting your way up a dominance hierarchy is exhausting. So eventually the bird will exhaust himself. If he is the most dominant bird, he'll eventually make it to the top of the pecking order. But that process can be excruciating, especially if, as a kind, caring person, you try to intervene and accidentally do more harm than good by messing up the natural order of things. So most birds will work it out. If there's injuries, I understand separating them, letting them recover. But when you reintroduce an injured bird, every bird that you introduce to an existing flock is automatically assumed to be at the bottom of a dominance hierarchy. So whenever he comes into contact with another bird, they're going to kind of feel each other out, and you might have a fight on your hands. So a good thing to do, like Rebecca said earlier, introduce them at night so they can't even see the new bird, and they kind of wake up together. 90% of the time that solves the issue, and there's no problems with fighting. If they keep fighting, you will need to remove the more dominant birds, separate them, leave them separated for long enough. If it's a really extreme case, weaken the birds by withholding food or water for 12 hours or a day, and introduce them in an exhausted state back into the flock. So there's a lot of science to it, that you extend energy when you have the fight, and if you've already had 3-4 fights with other birds, maybe you don't have the energy to have a 5th one or a 6th one. So it'll wait until the next day, and it won't be as severe. But it really just depends on the situation, depends on the bird's temperament. But by and large, if there's no injuries, they'll work it out. Even if there's a little bit of feather scuff up or whatnot, you're usually better off leaving the birds alone to sort out their differences than trying to intervene and make it completely peaceful, which could make it worse in the long run.
Okay. I'm just listening. I'm hearing kind of like what do they call it? It's a hum. Are you guys hearing that? It's not doing it now. Strange. Okay, here's a good one for Rebecca. Are any of you close to having a pure Pharaoh line yet?
I had a project going. I kind of put it on the back burner when I was working on my black quail line. I'm now starting that back up. Have recently found a really nice hen to kind of focus on. And now I've kind of passed the torch to Bree too. She's picking up that as well.
Oh, cool.
So yeah, I thought I had found a really nice male to work with, and then like overnight he decided to he had a beautiful white chin strap, and decided to lose half of it, and now he looks sex link brown again. So yeah, it is such a process. But Bree, you're starting a line, right?
Yep. That's what I've got now. So I'm fingers crossed. I've got some birds from hopefully that clean hen, and I know the roosters homozygous. So I'm hoping to get at least one hetero rooster out of that. Fingers crossed again. We'll see what hatches. But I've got some growing out now, and if I can get a clean hen going, it'd be great. If not, then I've got a plan to at least take a hetero rooster and do some switcheroo with roe because they're on the same locus, so they can't both exist. So if you've got roe, you can't have sex link brown, and then it'll take about 2 or 3 generations. I did a whole map out one afternoon just to see what I could do with it, but you can eventually get it so that you're dealing solely with roe instead of sex link brown, which is infinitely easier to see and cull out. You can do a lot of it at hatch, and sell off birds, raise out birds for butcher, without having to raise them out to, because like you said, sex link brown, you can see it pop up months after they're hatched. I think your bird was 3 months before it started showing any signs. Usually you have to wait until at least one adult molts. You can see it before, but you don't know for sure until after. So
Yep.
my estimate several years out before I'll get anywhere close, and I don't think there's anyone else right now seriously working on a line yet. Could be wrong, but
Didn't
another member in the coaching program working on one actually.
Oh, really?
And, she's not there yet, but she's getting some really nice looking birds.
Didn't Allie have a line that was pretty close to being clean?
yeah, she was 3 generations in, I believe, and then she kind of went off Facebook,
Dropped out.
and I haven't heard anything since. I know a couple people have reached out to her, and I don't know if they've heard anything back recently, but
Yeah. Okay, Superhero Quail says, question, my 6-week-old rooster is mating one of my 6-week-old hens, but she's not laying eggs yet. Is it okay for the hen to be bred, although she's not laying eggs yet? Go ahead, Michael. Whoops.
Yeah, as long as he's not beating her up, that shouldn't be a problem. I don't think there's anything physically wrong with the eggs being fertilized before she begins lay. If she's 6 weeks old, she's probably starting to develop eggs already anyway, or she will be within the next few days. So even if a bird doesn't lay until at 8 weeks old, that egg started developing about 12 weeks before the hen laid it, and that's when the fertilization takes place, is at the very beginning of the egg development. So I won't worry too much about that. As long as they're the same age and she seems to be in good health, then they're fine.
Okay. Genevieve wants to know, is anyone working to develop a Celadon laying Coturnix that are colored other than the Tibetan Scarlet and Range, with or without tuxedo? Especially interested in the lighter colors. Either of you guys have anything that you're working on?
I'm
Yes.
working on a line, but it's still a ways out for now.
Yeah, we have a few. So everyone's sick and tired of my Scarlet and Red Range tuxedos, I guess. This isn't the first I've heard of this. I really like those birds. So I guess we'll have to move on to something else now. But, yeah, we've got some stuff in the works.
Okay. Jose says suggestions on setup on quails in a shed. I'm struggling with high temperatures. I have 4 hatching time pens. I have a split AC running in the daytime along with a ceiling fan and box fan for exhaust. Well, Michael, since you're out there in the heat of the desert, how do you deal with it? Oops,
Yeah,
let me
I've
put it
actually
back up.
I'm going to post a link to it here in the discussion.
Okay.
A whole article on dealing with heat.
Cool.
So, we're in the desert, so yeah, if you're not in the desert like we are, it's a little bit more complicated. Mini split's a great idea for a system where you're dealing with humidity, but if you're dealing with dry heat like we are, then you have some other options. It's a little bit easier to deal with dry heat than it is humid heat. That said, anytime it's over about 80 degrees, the relative humidity is usually pretty low, and so you can use all of the same things like evaporative cooling and whatnot to keep your birds cold. So yeah, let me find that link and I'll post it in the discussion here.
Okay, I was just reading someone's. Don, I know my fans. The clicking's not coming from me because even when I was muted, I was still hearing the clicking and the humming. I did turn down my audio volume, so hopefully I'm not drowning everybody else out. Angelica says, does Quailology cover in-depth genetics? The subject is overwhelming to tackle.
I don't have a complete series of videos discussing all of the in-depth genetics yet. It's mostly conceptual and theoretical things in the tutorials right now. We have some beginner level tutorials and then some breeding tutorials. I just finished a series called the Breeder's Toolbox on different breeding practices. But yeah, that's my plan, is to go through all the different genetics as well. I think I get a distorted view of what's complex and what's needed, and sometimes it's good to start at a different place where people need it. So if you need help with the genetics, we'll work on that next and get those up there.
Okay, the Birdhouse says, I've seen mentioned that Sex-Link Brown makes an X on their backs. Does anyone have a picture showing what that looks like? Bree, didn't you used to have something like that?
Yep. So on the website, on my website, so ourpipsandchicks.wixsite.com, if you go under quail genetics, we've got a ton of pictures of most mutations out there, not all of them yet. And I've long way back in there had a couple pictures on my Facebook page about Sex-Link Brown, and I had like specific examples outlining. I probably can pull them up and post sometime soon. Just a refresher of, they had a couple diagrams, especially in the face, not as much in the X in the back, but yeah, there's definitely a bunch of pictures out there. I believe Katia also has some on our extraordinary quail. Really good examples to look at.
Okay. Yeah, I think she does too. Sundial Fragrance says, what's y'all's favorite best laying quail, quantity of eggs, and size? I like my jumbo pharaohs. What about you guys?
Well, it all depends on the breeder, honestly, what they've selected for, because any color can be, you know, different sizes or lay different size eggs. It's really based on selection from that particular breeder.
Okay. Just a reminder, Michael and Rebecca, don't forget to select your winners. As we're going through the chat, we're already pushing 8 o'clock now. And Bree, if you want to select somebody that can win the $50 Hatching Time gift certificate, we'll be asking for that here shortly. Okay, Jennifer62 says, question, why is it when I clean my quail trays, the quails stop laying eggs? Anybody? I've never run into that, so.
I would guess stress, maybe. If your birds are more on the flighty and nervous side, maybe changing the trays is stressing them out a little bit.
Mm-hmm. Are you using trays, Michael? What's your manure setup like?
Yeah, we use trays. We clean them once a week, so it doesn't affect their lay cycle. Obviously, the lay cycle takes 12 days, and so whatever's making them stop laying, if they start again, then whatever that was couldn't have happened within the last 12 days. So I would say maybe it's something else, but you're attributing it based on the timing, so just double check that. If that's not the case, then it probably is something to do with the process and stress. As long as their food isn't changing and they still have access to food and water, I don't see why cleaning the trays would stop them from laying. So that's a little bit of a mystery for me.
Okay. Got a lot of people that are really happy with the coaching program. Okay, GIS Herp says, question, Celadon. I keep seeing more debate on how it works, i.e. do hens with the genetics always lay blue? Like if she never saw a Celadon male, would eggs be blue or normal until bred with a Celadon boy? I know nothing about Celadon, so you guys have to take that one.
When do you want to take it?
Go ahead.
So I think most of the confusion with Celadon comes from the fact that it's a recessive gene that the males carry, but only presents from the females when they lay eggs. So it really does work like an autosomal recessive trait, which is how it's classified. But there are some other weird things about it based on the bird's other underlying genetics that can cause some birds in very rare circumstances to do odd things. But I think most of the confusion just comes from not separating the two things, which is their genetics, which is controlled by the male and the female, versus the phenotype, which only exists in the female's eggs.
I think to put it into a little bit more common terms, your hen will lay blue eggs. They either will or they won't. There's no halfway in between. So like I know in chickens, you can have like your olive eggers where they only have one copy of the blue egg gene. That's not the case in quail. They either will always lay blue, or they will never lay blue. It doesn't matter what hen you have, it doesn't matter what rooster you have with them. If you have any roosters with them, you can't tell if they carry only one copy in any way, shape, or form. So you can't tell that from the inside of the egg. I know that's a common myth going around right now. If the inside of the egg is blue, that does not mean that they carry blue. That doesn't mean that they have Celadon at all. It's just a normal trait that most quail have. And you also cannot tell from the color at all. That's another misconception. There's no way to see if the hen carries it besides test breeding or the hen lays blue eggs.
Okay. Dale says, Rebecca, what should I look for when trying to pick out the most docile breeders?
I would, again, observe your birds. Watch them, how they interact with each other. And Michael had a fantastic point before, about holding your birds. And are they flapping around? Is their heart racing? Or are they sitting there and kind of, being curious in your hand? I think just observation is the big thing.
Okay. I think this is a follow-up question on your earlier answer, Rebecca. When you move them out to add new quail in, does this disrupt their laying?
Yeah, anytime you change things with quail, it can throw their laying off a little, just from stress. It depends on your birds. I can move mine around all the time, and just yesterday I moved them into another cage, and they were laying while they were moved. Of course, as Michael pointed out, if you're going to disrupt laying, it's going to be a few days down the road. But it can disrupt them to add new birds.
Okay. Here's another one on aggression. Amber says, would you count a bird as aggressive if she really doesn't mess with other quail but wants to peck and rush your hands whenever you get in the cage for cleaning, feeding, etc. I've got a hen that does that. She hates me, but she loves her cage mates.
I think one of the key things too is, there's a lot of people out there that like to give their quail treats. So if you're giving them mealworms or greens or whatever, you may be conditioning your birds to come up to the cage and peck at your hands to see if you have anything. So I think that plays a role in it as well.
Okay, Ryan says, I'm new to quail after having been born and raised on a large-scale layer chicken farm. What's your opinion on birds per square foot for breeders, layers, grow out? So many options on the internet, and it's confusing. That's a good one for you, Michael.
Okay, so when they're growing out, you can keep as many per square foot as you can keep clean and healthy. I guess with that caveat, if they're so packed in shoulder to shoulder that they can't stay clean or they can't stay warm or cool or whatnot, that's not good. But you can pack quail in pretty darn tight when they're growing out before they hit maturity. After they hit maturity, so when you're talking about your adult birds long term, the USDA recommends at least a quarter square foot per laying hen. Some breeders I know will do 5 birds per square foot instead of 4. Most will do somewhere between 2 and 4. I'd say most will do between 3 and 4, but some will do 2.5 and whatnot. It depends on the temperature, airflow, the bloodline itself. If you're raising really large jumbo birds, they need a little bit more space. If you're raising really small standard birds or bantams, they don't need quite as much. Then there's a area when they get about 2 square feet per bird, 3 square feet per bird, they start to develop territories and you can have more issues with dominance. And so that's an area most breeders recommend staying away from. That it seems to be problematic with some varieties of quail or some bloodlines. But once you give them over about, I think I misspoke. So once you give them over about half a square foot, you can run into issues, so 2 birds per square foot. Then once you give them over about 2 square feet per bird, those issues seem to go away. They develop their own territories, they find their own places to hide. And so if you're in a wire floor setting, you can do the high density, more than 2 birds per square foot, but not more than 4 or 5. If you're in an aviary setting, or if you have the ability and time to clean constantly, you can do high density, but usually on the ground you want to give them at least 2 square feet per bird. And the sky's the limit. You can't really give them too much space. So that's my opinion, and that's what I've heard from other farms and commercial farmers.
Mm-hmm. Okay, Model T Zombie says, question, since I got my first egg today, do I need to wait a few weeks, or can I keep these and incubate next week? Anybody that wants that one? Okay, Rebecca, you take that.
Who wants it?
Anybody, I don't care.
All right. I always tell people the first 2 weeks of egg production is your guilt-free breakfast. The fertility rate is so low that they're not really worth putting in the incubator unless it's something really special or you're particularly excited about it. But I've seen too many people incubate their first week's worth of eggs and then only get 1 chick to hatch.
Yep.
And it's a pain in the butt when you only have 1 hatch because they can't co-imprint. So I would recommend when they first start laying, toss the first 2 weeks of eggs, collect them, bring them into your kitchen, give them to your friends, make them for breakfast. And then after about 2 weeks of consistent production, that's when you can start collecting hatching eggs. So really, if you collect a week's worth of eggs after 2 weeks, they've been laying for 3 weeks, so that 2 to 3 week period, you should get a pretty good fertility rate from that, assuming they're breeding properly and everything's set up right.
Okay, Alicia says, question, if you're breeding sparkly birds for overall size and varied colored patterns, should you breed your larger sparklies back to sparkly, or breed sparkly to larger birds of any color?
So I can take this one. I talk a lot about goal setting when people come to me with questions, or I get a lot of people that ask, which bird should I breed with which, especially with the virtual show and colors. And my overall stance on it is you need to decide what you want to breed for first and foremost. So I can't make a decision for you, but know that there's not necessarily a right or a wrong decision. There can certainly be wrong decisions, I should clarify. But in a situation like this, you need to decide what's more important to you. Is it more important that you will have large birds? Do you want large birds? Or is it more important to you that you want color genetics? And you need to kind of do a tier chart that, of what you're going to allow and what you're going to accept in your program and what you won't. It's easy to get so caught up in colors that you lose sight of everything else and end up with very weak birds. And it's easy enough to end up to get so focused on size that you lose all of your colors, and have to introduce new blood if you want new colors back. So you can certainly keep it in balance, but that's not a question, I guess, that I would be able to answer for you outright. If you want larger birds and that's your main goal is you want big meat birds, breed them to a different color and you can breed back. And inbreeding is huge. It's a really great tool that you can use to get that back. But if you're breeding solely for color and you don't mind standard size birds instead of jumbo birds, and as long as your birds are healthy, then stick with the sparklies. There's a really good saying in the chicken world, your birds are as good as what you put up with. So.
Okay, let's see. Justin says, question, how big is too big for breeding jumbo quail? I've seen guidelines for minimum size, but I haven't seen much on what size starts to cause health issues due to being too big. It's a good one for you, Michael.
Yeah, it's a complicated question because it depends on the bloodline. The JMF standard is not to keep anything in the breeding program over 15 ounces. But if you're making your own line, especially if you're using birds that aren't that closely related to the JMF birds, I would experiment with that on your own. I would see how large, if your goal is to breed a larger meat bird and push the limits, focus first on the frame of the bird and bone density, build the structure of the bird so you're not putting too much weight on a weak structured bird. But if you can get the bone density where you need it and the structure and the frame right, then I would keep the largest birds and see how they do. And another thing to keep an eye out for is longevity. So keep that bird, but don't assume that your project's a success just because you got an 18-ounce bird or 20-ounce bird. Make sure that that bird has a long life, that it stays healthy, that its knees don't give out within 6 months, because you want your birds to be productive for 8 to 10 months, 12 months. So if you have a bird that's consistently going to give out after 6 months, it's not a good line. So then you know you're breeding a bird too large for the other traits in that bird, like the bone density and the leg structure. So yeah, I don't think there's a number because it just depends on what genetics you're working with and the other traits of your birds.
Right. I think Martin Yardley said breed for framework first and then worry about putting on the weight. Okay, Christina says, question, I would like to eventually get NPIP certified. Do I have to have a specific kind of setup or sanitation/biosecurity procedure in place before I can do that, i.e. bleach tray for shoes, etc.? Rebecca?
Okay.
No,
well, nobody said nothing, so go ahead, Bree.
Bree and I were just talking about that the other night. Bree,
yeah?
You had some really good points to throw at that, so I'll let you take this one.
Yeah. So I had I started with quail in Wisconsin, and then moved to college, and now I'm in Michigan, and they have two very, very different programs. So the NPIP is a national program, but it varies hugely between state to state. So I know in Wisconsin, it's as simple as you get someone out to blood test your birds, and you've got the paperwork that they do the day of, and you submit it in, and you mail in your check, and you'll get your result right over. I think I got mine within 5 days. I got my NPIP status, and I was good to go. I didn't have to do, they asked that I submit forms, but they didn't really check up on it. And then I moved to Michigan, and the process is completely different. So they test both for Pelorum and AI, so they did not test for AI in Wisconsin. And being in the UP of Michigan, there's like 0 testers here, so that's already, makes it a lot more difficult. But they also have inspectors that can come out and check. They also have a clause in there that they can check your property at any time. So it really varies widely across what state you have. I don't think any of them get strict enough to the point where you're going to have to worry about wearing shoes or different shoes for your birds unless you have multiple strains of birds on your property. So I know in Wisconsin the rule was you could have you could have a flock of tested birds and be NPIP, and also have a flock of non-tested birds on your property, given that they're 30 feet apart. And in that case, you would need to have strict biosecurity of I'm not wearing the same clothes from one flock to the other, because that can transfer Pelorum. But as far as, all of my flock is NPIP Pelorum AI tested, and I wouldn't worry about, for NPIP testing, I wouldn't worry about I need to have different shoes, different clothes. For different biosecurity, you can get as strict or as lenient as you want, and know there's consequences of both. It's certainly not a bad idea to have different shoes or a different cleaning area if you can do that with your setup. So
You're in the UP of Michigan?
Yep. Pretty much as far north as you can go.
Yeah, I'm from Michigan originally.
Oh, where in Michigan?
Originally, Grand Rapids, basically.
Okay.
Grand Rapids area, yep. What's up in the UP? I mean, is that where you're going to school, or?
Yeah, Michigan Tech is way up in the Keweenaw.
I didn't know that. Wow.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Right along. I can see Lake Superior out the window.
Nice.
Yeah.
All right, Dane says, question. I keep my breeding groups in indoor cages, and I'm thinking of building an outdoor aviary using a deep litter method as a grow out for all my extra males. Will this work? Are there any issues? Rebecca, I know you've got an aviary, so go ahead and take that one.
Yeah, and I have an outdoor aviary, don't have any problems, and I have had great success with bachelor groups as well. Occasionally I'll get a jerk that is going around trying to beat everybody up, and I remove him and everybody's fine. So I think a bachelor program, a bachelor pad is fine. Just, see if you have any bullies.
Yeah, I do the same thing in my aviary. I use it as a grow out for all my roosters, and they get along fine until butcher day. Okay, this one is for Bree. Ashley says, what will the Coturnix Quail Association include? How will the members join? How will new members join?
So as far as new members joining, we're still working that out. That's one of the major things that we're hoping to get accomplished with tomorrow's meeting, is to have a solid guideline for that. There will be dues. That's another thing, just to be able to keep the website running, be able to put on the standard and get things organized. There's costs that come with all of it. I think we had talked about dues being about like $15 to $20 a year. Again, that's a rough number, so that's not anything official yet. And then it would be pretty much you fill out a form and submit the paperwork to the treasurer, and we'll have separate bank account that money goes into. And then, like, as far as what membership had include, all includes, we'll have a members only section of the website, so that'll have different articles, different breeding tips from just our members that you can read. We will also have the Facebook group will be open to just members, so that'll be, once we get a little bit more situated, that'll be open up to more questions that you can have answered. We are also looking at, when we put the standard together, members will get access to the standard and be able to see all of that. Just like things like that. We're also having a list. Rebecca had talked about that. She's working on that. A directory of, you're a member, so you get to be put on our website with a link to your website, to your own personal website if you have that, and just a general connections with community and good breeders.
Cool. Okay, Jordan says, questions. What's the life expectancy of your breeder quail? And when do y'all replace your breeders? Thanks and congrats on the 50K. Michael, you go ahead and take that one.
With proper care, you can expect them to be productive for about 2 years. If you want them to be profitable, they'll be very, very productive for the first 10.5 to 11 months. So most professional breeders will cull their birds, remove them after about a year at the oldest, and most hobby breeders will keep them for between 1 and 2 years. You can expect some males to get a little bit lazy after about a year. It just depends on the bloodline. If the breeder you got them from breeds for robust, consistent males who are performing for a full year, or if you buy from a breeder who replaces their males more often than that, then they might not. That may be a big unknown if they'll last longer than however long the breeder you got them from keeps them. But yeah, I would expect 1 to 2 years for most of your birds. And again, it all goes back to how well did you take care of them? Did you breed them properly? Are they in good health? Are you using good quality feed? Are you giving them a clean environment, constant access to water, things like that can really affect the longevity and production of your birds. As far as how long they'll live, they can live several years after that, but on average 4 to 5 years is what most quail will live to be.
Okay, we're getting close to 8:30, so I'm going to wrap it up at 8:30. But let me go through here and pick a few more questions. And if you guys got your selected winners, I'll be calling on you for that shortly. Here's another follow-up, Michael, on this one. Oliver Cole says, question, do bigger birds tend to hatch bigger birds, or do birds from bigger eggs tend to lay bigger eggs too?
Yes and yes. There's a correlation. It's not necessarily a causation. So it depends on the line. It depends on the gene pool. If it's a big gene pool, you can get inconsistencies. If it's a small gene pool from a pure line, then you'll usually have more consistency. But there's definitely a correlation between egg size and egg size of the offspring, bird size of the offspring. There's even a correlation if you take a large sample of random breeders and select the larger eggs, that those will turn into the larger birds. Although it's not a direct causation, sometimes birds will start laying smaller, and usually they'll lay larger eggs the older they get. So there's a little bit of that. But yeah, that's a kind of complicated answer to a complicated question. It just depends. But yes, in general, yeah.
Okay. Adolf says, what causes baby chicks to have watery poop? Bree?
Oh, calling on me. It could be a variety of things. So, I've never had too many issues with it in quail. A lot of it comes down to your feed. So what you're feeding them, what's in the feed, and your protein content, as well as you can have a couple. I know in chickens, we had issues when I first started with pasty butt, so that was just something to keep a lookout for. You can have diseases that can cause it, but I would say more often than not, it's going to be a feed.
Okay. Here's another question for Michael. Zarifra says, questions. I'm guessing the best way to identify what genes are in a bird's, cross it to a pure farrow line to help separate those colors out. Your mystery dilute in your calico fees, Michael.
That's one way to do it. The most common test cross is to farrow. If it's recessive, it's going to hide, and so you would then have to inbreed or breed a further generation. But yeah, crossing to farrow is a great way to see what's in them, a great way to see what's hidden underneath what's called cryptomeres. So it's when a gene hides another gene. But yeah, it'll take a couple generations to identify all the recessive genes. In the example that you're giving, the calico fees that are throwing a dilute, you could also set up a test group with just one of the dilute birds and a calico fee that you know doesn't carry that dilution. So there's other ways that you can test breed. just as long as you can see what you're trying to identify, then you can usually figure out what it is.
Looks like somebody said it might be my mic's making all that noise, because when I'm muting, they're not hearing it. I have to get a new mic, I guess. Let's see. One more question here, and then we'll announce our winners. Here's one for Rebecca. Julie says, I have the calmest group ever hatched. Will their offspring be calm too?
Generally, yes. The temperament of the parents can lead to temperament of the offspring. It can be genetic.
Okay. All right, here's one last question for Bree. Julie says, how do we know if we're breeding homozygous or heterozygous birds?
That's a fun one. It depends on your mutation. So it depends on what colors you're breeding. A lot of them are incomplete dominant, which means it's going to look different in homozygous form versus heterozygous form, but you'll be able to see it in both. It might be very hard to see, but you will still be able to see it. So like looking at some of your colors like calico, they're just going to look completely different in both forms. But some of them, if you've got a recessive mutation, you can tell if they have homozygous based on how it looks, which is 2 copies, or you can tell if they don't, like you won't be able to tell if they don't have it or just carry it, because recessive can get hidden. So yeah, the short answer is it really depends on the mutation. The long answer is, yeah, it still really depends on the mutation.
That's good. Okay, great. All right, I got one more quick question for me. It says, Terry, I'm wanting to build your DIY incubator. Do you think a reptile heat pad would work for a heat source, or is it safer to just stick with the original design? I always encourage people to test out different things when building that cabinet incubator, but I can say that I tested it for 6 months prior to releasing the plans online, and I kind of figured out what worked and what didn't. So I would stick to the plans, but you're more than welcome to go ahead and modify it any way you can. You just might have to do a little bit of testing and modifying in order to make your modification work. So okay. Okay, there's Pips and Chicks website. Is that the right address there, Bree?
Yep, it looks
Okay.
like it. So that should have most of the colors on it.
Okay, cool. All right, so I've got the winners here that Michael selected, and I've got my winner. Rebecca, do you have yours? And Bree, do you have a winner yet?
Yep. Do you want me to text it to you or just?
No, go ahead and announce it, because I'm going to write it down here.
Okay, I'm gonna go with Mrs. Yum Pickles.
I'm going to choose Emily Ellsworth.
Okay, Emily Ellsworth, you said?
Yep.
And Emily, you're getting the $50 gift certificate from Hatching Time. Mrs. Young Pickles, you're getting a 30 count of hatching eggs from Thieving Otter Farm. Christina Chen, you are getting a Coturnix Corner retro tumbler. And for all you winners, I need you to send me. Do you guys want the info sent directly to you, Rebecca and Mike?
Yeah, that's
Michael?
fine.
That works.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so Mrs. Young Pickles, you're going to send Rebecca your shipping information. Rebecca, how do you want it? Email or?
Yeah, email's fine. thievingotterfarm@gmail.com.
Perfect. Christina, you can just email me, terry@coturnixcorner.com. Same with Emily Ellsworth. You can email me. And for the 2 winners that Michael selected, one's for the 30 count of hatching eggs. That's going to go to Angelica Kahn. Same thing. Email Michael. What's your email, Michael?
Michael at swgamebirds.com.
Okay. And if you guys don't remember the emails, you can always, message them over on Facebook. Everybody here is on Facebook. And the Quailology subscription is going to Hazy Bees Honey, David Smith. So I don't need to write them down because I got them on there. So congratulations to all your winners, and thank you to you guys for your donations for the giveaways. And is there anything else you guys want to add before we wrap it up?
Congratulations, everyone.
Yeah. Congrats.
Yep, I appreciate it. Again, guys, thanks for helping us get to 50,000 subscribers. It's great to see it going. We got a super chat from Del Choo Choo. Thanks, buddy. I appreciate that. We will donate that to the Coturnix Kids program. So, okay, if you guys don't have anything else you want to mention, we will go ahead and wrap it up tonight. And I don't know what's going on for next week, whether I'm going live or not. It's going to kind of be on a wait and see, but I will post it over on the Facebook group page. Until I get a regular schedule going back here again, it's going to have to be, wait and see what happens. So thanks, Rebecca, Bree, Michael. Appreciate you guys joining us tonight.
Thanks for having us.
Absolutely.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, everybody have a great night, and we'll see you on the next live stream.